Hello, this is Megan's Minutes. Today I just wanted to have a conversation with you about talking with your young children about race. And I think that, with all of the things happening in the national news this week, it seems like a really pertinent time to have some conversation about this. I think a lot of times parents feel like, their children are too young to be having this conversation. Which is absolutely not the case. The staff at the Montessori House this has been a big topic for us for many years, and we've been to many trainings and workshops about how to have these kind of conversations with the children. And really, we believe that to really make a positive impact and change in the world with anything, whether it be social justice or the environment or whatever, that we have to start with the children. It's so important. And it is certainly true in this case. And the one thing that I always walk away from these trainings and workshops feeling is that, the worst thing that we can do is nothing. It's not, we don't have to be perfect and have like exactly the right words and exactly the right checklist of how to have these kind of difficult conversations with our children. We just need to be having some conversations with our children about skin color, about, stereotypes, about prejudice, about injustice. We have to be having these conversations with our children like as soon as they are able to talk. And I'll be, I'm by no means an expert, and I would never pretend to be, but I do feel very strongly about this issue, and I will be a resource to you for additional resources. I'll connect you with people who are experts in this field. So in the description of this video, I will share a few different resources today. One of them is a PDF that just kind of talks about a timeline of what research has shown, like how children develop their prejudice, and it actually shows that their expressions of racial prejudice peak at age 4 and 5. So we really have to be having these conversations when they're very young. And I think that it's been pointed out to me that just the idea that, white parents, I think a lot of times white parents feel like they don't know what to say, and so they just don't say anything. Or they're waiting for their child to bring something up, and then they'll respond because they don't want to be introducing information too soon or something. And it has been pointed out to me time and again that just that concept in itself is an example of white privilege. Parents of color do not have the choice of whether they're going to talk to their children about these issues. It is important for their safety that they have this information from a very young age. So I think that we really need to keep that in mind and feel, just feel the weight of the importance of having this dialogue with our children. And again, it's not as much about saying everything perfectly as much as it is just having open dialogue and conversation with your child about these things. So I'll be sharing that PDF. It has a bunch of resources and on the PDF itself. I'm also going to share an article from romp.com that is called From Christian Cooper to George Floyd, A Letter to White Parents by Tabitha St. Bernard's Jacobs. And she just says flat out, if you are not teaching your kids to be anti-racist, then you're teaching them to be racist by default. So she says all white parents need to commit to raising anti-racist kids so that your kids can use their privilege to interrupt and dismantle racism when they see it. And that is just so powerful and so true. We have to be teaching our children this now, right now. So there's also, I think that one thing that happens is that kids will start to notice differences among their peers or just among people in general, and as part of how their brain works, they're categorizing and sorting out things in their brains, and so they'll notice a difference in skin color, and maybe they'll notice that someone has black skin, and they'll say that, and then the adults will shush them like that's a bad thing. And that in itself is giving a message. So, it's noticing the differences between skin color is the same as noticing the differences between hair color or eye color, how we all are different and we're all beautiful in our own ways. But when we start to associate this kind of like stereotypical set of values or, biases with the skin color, that is how prejudice is created. Racism is born. So it's really important for us to like notice the differences with our children and, point out their beauty. And also talk about like the scientific aspect. This is another resource I'll be sharing with you in the description. It's a book by Katie Kissinger called All the Colors We Are, the story of how we get our skin color. And it's just a scientific explanation of why we have different skin color. And there's also some great activities in the back to, just to work with your children and have some dialogue around skin colors. It's really good. I highly recommend it. We read it at our school all the time, and I would recommend every household having a copy. And Katie Kissinger is a very big advocate for social justice, and she does a lot of work in the early childhood education field, and I would recommend, I'm sure she has a website or something that you could probably get more information from her too. I've heard her speak several times, and it's very powerful. So I'll also share a podcast. It's from last February 2019, but it's from NPR Life Kit Parenting, talking race with young children. And it just gives like 5 different examples of ways that you can be having these kind of conversations with your children. So I hope that those resources are valuable to you. And I think that it's just really important, if you are a white parent, that you start to kind of be aware of the times that you are offered white privilege, which is all the time. And point them out to your children. I was with my kids a few months ago at a grocery store, and as we were walking out, they were like stopping everybody at the door and checking their receipts to see, and then checking their bags to make sure that they had what was in the receipt. And there were 3 or 4 people in front of me. They were all, of different ethnicity, but all darker skin color than me. And then when we got up to the clerk, they were just like, okay, thank you, and just like waved us through. And we got to the van, and I was just like, wait a second. I mean, why, I was like, why do you think that happened to my kids? And did not take them long to figure out that it was because I was white. That was the one thing that was different about me than the people that were going ahead of me. And, it was just like, oh, well, since you have white skin, then you probably paid for your things. And so we're just going to trust you and let you go through. And so, we had a really good conversation about that, but I should have taken it the next step, which, I honestly just wasn't aware. It's just so sad. Like, we are so used to our white privilege. Like, we are surrounded by privilege all the time. And I just it didn't even register until I was like already in the car. So just like taking an assessment and noticing when these things happen. And then next time I intend to step up and just like, not in an insulting way, but just to say like, why don't you want to see my receipt? It's very possible that person didn't even realize they were doing it either. It's so ingrained in our system and our society. So I just really think it's important that we are bringing awareness to this issue, that we are having these conversations with our children, and so that they can also step up and feel confident to, acknowledge when they're receiving white privilege or when they're witnessing injustice. So that's just a starting point, but I just want to help you just feel confident about starting this dialogue if you haven't already. Again, the worst thing you could do is nothing. So just start with some conversation. Get this book, listen to a podcast, and get the dialogue going. So good luck, and I will have more information for you next time.